Hello, friends. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the brief summary of The Merchant of Venice, written by William Shakespeare. Before we get started, let's know something about William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was born in 1564 at Stratford upon Avon in England. He obtained his formal education only up to the age of 13. After that, his father got his education discontinued as he needed his help at the shop. At the age of 18, he married Anna. After a few years, he went to London and got in touch with the rising theatre. He tried his hand at writing plays for the theatre. In the beginning, he merely altered the old plays a bit, but as time passed, he put more and more of himself into these plays and very soon became a very popular playwright. With hard work, he reached the peak of his dramatic success and dominated the English theatre for a number of years. He died in 1616. The literary world lost a great literary figure. It was sincerely felt by one and all that he was not of an age but for the old times. Shakespeare wrote 37 plays in his lifetime. His plays are varied in nature and can be roughly divided into three categories: the comedies, the tragedies, and the historical plays. Some of his famous comedies are The Merchant of Venice, As You Like It, Twelfth Night, Winter's Tale, and The Comedy of Errors, etc. Apart from being a dramatist, Shakespeare was a famous poet also. He wrote a sonnet sequence which contains a large number of sonnets. In fact, he wrote 154 sonnets. His poetical works also include two long narrative poems. Now let's begin the brief summary of the play The Merchant of Venice. Before we get started, let's know something about the major characters of the play. The Duke of Venice, after that the Prince of Morocco and the Prince of Aragon were the suitors of Portia. Antonio, he is the merchant of Venice. Bassanio, his kinsman and suitor likewise to Portia. Salarino, Sulenio, Gratiano, Celerio, Lorenzo, Shylock, Tubal, these all are the major characters of the play. Now, let's start. Shylock was a Jew. He lived at Venice. He was an usher. He had collected a great wealth by lending money at great interest to Christian merchants. Shylock was a very hard hearted man. He was very severe with his borrowers. He was very heartless in getting back the money he had lent, so he was disliked by all good men. Antonio was a young merchant of Venice. Of all the Christians, he hated Shylock the most. Shylock also hated Antonio as much. The reason was that Antonio used the lend money to people in distress. He would never charge any interest for it. Therefore, there was a great enmity between the greedy Jew and the kind hearted merchant Antonio. Whenever Antonio met Shylock in the market, he used to chid him for his ushery and hard dealings. The Jew would bear all this with a seeming patience, while he secretly meditated revenge. Antonio was the kindest man that ever lived. He was very courteous and always eager to help others. He was greatly loved by all his fellow citizens, but the friend who was nearest and dearest to his heart was Bassanio. This Bassanio was a noble Venetian. He was a young man of high rank but had very little fortune. He lived in too expensive a manner for his small means, so he was always hard up. But his friend Antonio was always there, ready to help him with as much money as he needed. It seemed as if they had one heart and one purse between them. One day Bassanio came to Antonio. He told him that how he had planned to repair his fortune. He explained thus: there is a rich lady whom I love very dearly. My fortune can improve if I am able to marry her. Her father has died very recently. Now she is the sole heiress to a large estate. I often visited her house during her father's lifetime. Sometimes she sent from her eyes speechless messages. They seemed to say that she considered me no unworthy suitor. But I don't have the money to give myself an appearance befitting the lover of so rich a lady. Oh, dear friend Antonio, you have already shown me not a few favors. Now add one more to them by lending me 3,000 ducats. Antonio had no money with him at that time. However, he expected some of his ships to come home very soon. Those ships were laden with merchandise, and then Antonio could give his friend as much money as he wanted. But right now he had no money to lend him. So he said, I shall go to Shylock and the rich moneylender and borrow the money upon the credit of my ships. Antonio and Bassanio went together to Shylock. Antonio asked the Jew to lend him 3,000 ducats upon any rate of interest. He said that the loan would be returned as soon as his ships reached home. On this, Shylock thought within himself, if I once catch him on the ship, I shall not spare him. I will have my revenge. He hates our Jewish nation. He lends money without interest, and thus harms my business. Among the merchants, he rails at me and my dealings. Cursed be my tribe if I forgive him. Now, Antonio was very impatient for the money. When he saw Shylock lost in his thoughts, he said, Shylock, do you hear? Will you lend the money? To this question, the Jew replied, my sir Antonio, you have often insulted me in the market. You have often railed at my usury. I have been bearing all that patiently, and you have called me an unbeliever and a cutthroat dog. You have also spat upon my Jewish garments. You have spurned me with your foot, as if I was a cur. And now it appears you need my help. So you come to me and say, Shylock, lend me money. Has a dog money? Is it possible a cur should lend 3,000 ducats? Shall I bend low and say, Fear, sir, you spat upon me on Wednesday last. Another time you called me dog, and for these courtesies I am to lend you monies? Antonio replied, I shall possibly call you so again and spit on you again. If you want to lend me this money, do not lend it to me as to a friend, but rather as to an enemy. Then, in case I break the agreement, you can have the penalty with a better face. Now, Shylock was a very clever fellow. Quite calmly, he said to Antonio, Now look how you storm. I want to be friends with you and have your love. I will forget the insults you have showered upon me. I will supply your need and take no interest for my money. Antonio was greatly surprised at this kind offer by Shylock. The scheming Jew kept his pretense of kindness, saying that all he wanted was to gain Antonio's love. He repeated his offer that he would lend him the 3,000 ducats and take no interest for his money. But he said that just for the sake of Mary's support, Antonio should go with him to a lawyer and there sign a bond. It would be written in the bond that if Antonio did not repay the money by a certain day, he would give as penalty a pound of flesh to be cut from any part of his body. The Shylock pleased. All right, said Antonio, I will sign this bond. But Bassanio did not want Antonio to sign such a bond for him. Antonio, however, insisted that he would sign it. He was sure that before the day of payment came, his ships would return laden with many times the value of the borrowed money. When Shylock heard this debate between the two friends, he exclaimed, "O God, what suspicious people these Christians are! I pray you tell me this, Bassanio. If he should break his promise, what should I gain by demanding this penalty? A pound of man's flesh! It won't be even as profitable as the flesh of sheep or ox. I make this offer only to buy his friendship. If he will take it, so; if not, goodbye." At last, much against the wishes of Bassanio, Antonio signed the bond. Though the Jew had spoken much of his kind intentions, Bassanio didn't like his friend to run the risk of his shocking penalty for his sake. But Antonio thought that the signing of the bond was merely in sport. The rich heiress that Bassanio wished to marry lived at Belmont. It was a place near Venice. Her name was Portia. She was a very beautiful lady and had a noble heart. After getting the money which his friend Antonio had arranged for him at the risk of his life, Bassanio set out for Belmont. He took his dear friend and servant Gratiano with him. Bassanio proved successful in winning Portia's heart. In a short time she consented to accept him for a husband. Bassanio confessed to Portia that he had no fortune. He said that his high birth and noble ancestry was all that he could boast of. To this Portia answered with graceful modesty. She said that she loved him not for any wealth, but for his noble qualities. She had riches enough not to regard wealth in a husband. In all humility, she said that she wished herself 1,000 times more fair and 10,000 times more rich to be worthy of him. She called herself an unschooled girl and promised to follow his directions in all things. She spoke thus: "Myself and what is mine now belongs to you. Till yesterday, O Bassanio, I was the lady of this fair palace. I was queen of myself. I was mistress over these servants. But now this house, these servants, and myself are yours, my lord. I give them all to you along with this ring." Saying this, she presented a ring to Bassanio. Bassanio was filled with gratitude at this gracious manner in which Portia had accepted a man of no fortune like him. He couldn't express his deep joy to the dear lady who honored him so much. He could only utter broken words of love and thankfulness. He gratefully took the ring from Portia and vowed never to part with it. Bassanio's servant Gratiano was very happy when Portia so gratefully promised to become the obedient wife of his master. He wished Bassanio and Lady Portia all joy, but he also sought permission for himself to be married at the same time. "With all my heart," Gratiano said Bassanio, "if you can get a wife." Gratiano then said that he loved the Lady Portia's beautiful maid Nerissa. He also disclosed that Nerissa had promised to be his wife if her lady married Bassanio. Portia asked Nerissa if this was true. Nerissa replied, "Madam, it is so, if you approve of it." Portia willingly gave her consent. Then Bassanio said pleasantly, "Our wedding feast shall be much honored by your marriage, Gratiano." The happiness of these lovers was sadly crossed at this moment by the entrance of a messenger. He had come with a letter from Antonio. The letter contained some very fearful news. When Bassanio read this letter, he turned pale. Portia feared it told him of the death of some dear friend. She asked him that what the news was that had so saddened him. Bassanio replied, "O sweet Portia, here are the most painful words written on the piece of paper. Gentle lady, when I first expressed my love to you, I frankly told you that all the wealth I had ran in my veins, but I should have told you that I had less than nothing since I am in debt. Then Bassanio told Portia the whole story of the how he had borrowed the money from Antonio and how Antonio had got it from a Jew named Shylock and how Antonio had signed a bond by which he would have to give a pound of his flesh if the money was not repaid by a certain day. Then Bassanio read out Antonio's letter to Portia. Sweet Bassanio, my ships are all lost. I have been asked to pay the penalty according to the bond. In paying this penalty, it is impossible for me to live. I wish I could see you at my death. However, you should use your pleasure. If your love for me doesn't persuade you to come, let not my letter. Oh, my dear love, said Portia, leave all your business here and go to your friend at once. You shall have gold to pay the money 20 times over. This kind friend shall not lose even a hair by my Bassanio's fault. Portia then said that she would marry Bassanio before he set out. Thus, Bassanio would have a legal right to her money. So Portia and Bassanio were married the same day. Gratiano was also married to Nerissa. Bassanio and Gratiano, as soon as they were married, set out in a great haste for Venice. On reaching there, Bassanio found Antonio in prison. The day fixed for the payment had passed. Bassanio offered the money to Shylock, but the cruel Jew would not accept. He insisted on having a pound of Antonio's flesh. A day was appointed to present this shocking case before the Duke of Venice. Bassanio awaited in dreadful suspense the event of the trial. When Portia had parted from her husband, she had spoken cheeringly to him. She had asked him to bring his dear friend with him when he returned. However, in her heart of hearts, she feared lest the worst should come to Antonio. So when she was left alone, she began to think and consider within herself. She thought about the means by which she could become instrumental in saving the life of her dear Bassanio's friend. Though she had promised Bassanio to act upon his directions in all things, yet now she thought was the time when she had to act on her own judgment in order to save her dear husband's friend. So she resolved at once to go herself to Venice and speak in Antonio's defense. Portia had a relation whose name was Bellario. He was a famous lawyer known all around. Portia wrote a letter to him stating Antonio's case. She sought his advice in this matter and also requested him to send her the dress worn by a lawyer. When the messenger returned, he brought from Bellario letters of his advice and also the necessary equipment. Portia dressed herself and her maid Nerissa in man's clothes. Portia also put on the robe of a lawyer. She took Nerissa along with her as her clerk, and the two set out immediately for Venice. They reached on the very day of trial. The case was just going to be heard before the Duke of Venice. Portia entered the court of justice and presented a letter from Bellario. In this letter, the famous lawyer had written to the Duke that he would have himself come to plead for Antonio, but he was prevented by sickness. So he had requested the Duke that the learned young man, Balthazar, so he called Portia, might be permitted to plead in his stead. The Duke granted this request, but he wondered at the youthful appearance of the stranger. So prettily was Portia disguised by her lawyer's clothes, her large wig, that nobody could have ever the slightest idea that she was not a man. And now began this important trial. Portia looked around and saw the merciless Jew. She also saw Bassanio there, but he knew her not in her disguise. He was standing beside Antonio and was full of agony and fear for his friend. The importance of the difficult task Portia had come to perform filled her tender heart with a great courage. She boldly proceeded to fulfill the duty she had undertaken upon herself. First of all, she addressed herself to Shylock. She admitted that he had a right by the Ventian law to claim the penalty expressed in the bond. But then she spoke on the quality of mercy. She spoke so sweetly that it would have softened any heart. The unfeeling Shylock, however, remained unmoved. Portia said that the quality of mercy was like the gentle rain dropping from heaven upon the earth below. It was a double blessing, since it blessed him that gave and also him that received it. It honored a monarch better than his crown. It was a quality of God Himself. Justice tempered with mercy brought one nearest to God. Portia reminded Shylock that we all pray to God for mercy. The same prayer should teach us to show mercy in our own life also. But all this fine speech on the quality of mercy hadn't the least effect upon Shylock. He said that he only desired to have the penalty mentioned in the bond. Is he not able to pay the money? Asked Portia. Bassanio at once stepped forward with a bag of money. He offered to pay the Jew his 3,000 ducats, and as many times over he should desire. But Shylock refused to accept it. He still insisted on having a pound of Antonio's flesh. Bassanio begged the learned young lawyer to alter the law a little to save Antonio's life, but Portia gravely answered that laws once established must never be altered. When Shylock heard Portia say that the law must not be altered, it seemed to him that she was pleading in his favor. Looking at her joyfully, he said, "An angel of justice is come to give judgment. O wise young judge, how do I honor you! How wise are you for your age!" Portia now asked Shylock to let her look at the bond. After reading it, she said the Jew can lawfully claim a pound of Antonio's flesh. According to the terms of this bond, he can cut off the flesh nearest Antonio's heart. Then she said to Shylock, "Be merciful, take the money, and allow me to tear this bond." But the cruel Jew was not prepared to show any mercy. He said, "By my soul, I swear there is no power in the tongue of man to alter me." On hearing this, Portia turned to Antonio and said, "Then you must prepare your bosom for the knife." And while Shylock was sharpening his long knife with a great eagerness to cut off the pound of flesh, Portia said to Antonio, "Have you anything to say?" Very calmly, Antonio replied that he had prepared his mind for death and had nothing to say. Then he said to Bassanio, "Give me your hand, Bassanio. Fare you well. Grieve not that I am fallen into his misfortune for you. Remember me to your honorable wife, and tell her how I have loved you." In deepest affection, Bassanio replied, "Antonio, I am married to a wife who is as dear to me as life itself. But life itself, my wife, and all the world are not for me above your life. I would sacrifice all to this devil here to save you." When Bassanio expressed his love for Antonio in these strong terms, Portia was not at all offended. She was a very kind hearted lady. She was not angry when Bassanio said that he would sacrifice even his wife in order to save his friend Antonio. She said cleverly, "If your wife were present here, she would give you little thanks to hear you make this offer." Now Gratiano always loved to copy everything that his lord did. He thought that he must also make a speech like Bassanio's. So he said, "I have a wife whom I love very dearly. I wish she were in heaven at this time. Then she could request some power there to change the cruel temper of this wicked Jew." Nerissa, in her clerk's dress, was writing by the side of Portia. When she heard Gratiano's speech, she looked at him and said, "It is well you wish this demand behind your wife's back, else you would have a big quarrel at your house." Shylock now cried out impatiently, "We are wasting our time. I request you to give the judgment." And now everybody in the court waited in awful silence. Every heart was full of grief for Antonio. Portia asked if the scales were ready to weigh the flesh. Then she said to the Jew, "Shylock, you must have some surgeon by. lest he should bleed to death. But Shylock's whole intent was that Antonio should bleed to death. So he said, "It is not so named in the bond." Portia replied, "It is not so named in the bond, but what of that? If were good you did so much for charity." To this Shylock only said, "It is not so named in the bond." "Then," said Portia, "a pound of Antonio's flesh is thine?" "The law allows it and the court awards it, and you may cut off the flesh from his breast." "The law allows it and the court awards it." Again Shylock exclaimed, "O wise and upright judge, an angel of justice is come to give judgment." Then he sharpened his long knife again, and looking eagerly on Antonio said, "Come, prepare." "Wait a little, Jew," said Portia. "There is something else. This bond here allows you no drop of blood. The word expressly are a pound of flesh. If in cutting off the pound of flesh you shed one drop of blood, all your lands and goods are by the law to be taken by the state of Venice." Now it was utterly impossible for Shylock to cut off the pound of flesh without shedding some of Antonio's blood. So this wise discovery of Portia's saved the life of Antonio. Everybody admired the wonderful wisdom of the young lawyer. What a marvelous discovery he has made. Every part of the hall resounded with applause, and Gratiano exclaimed in the words which Shylock had used, "O wise and upright judge, an angel of justice has come to give judgment." Shylock found himself defeated in his cruel intent. In great disappointment, he said to Bassanio, "You offered me 10 times the sum. I shall take it, and then Antonio shall be free to go." Bassanio was happy beyond measure at this unexpected turn of the case. He cried out in great joy, "Here is the money." But Portia stopped him, saying, "The Jews shall have nothing but the penalty. Therefore prepare, Shylock, to cut off the flesh. But mind you shed no blood. You must not cut off more nor less than just a pound, be it more or less by 1 grain. And if the scales turn even by the height of a single hair, you will be condemned by the laws of Venice to death, and all your wealth shall go to the state." "Give me my money and let me go," said Shylock. "I have it ready," said Bassanio. "Here it is." Shylock was going to take the money, but Portia again stopped him. She said, "Wait a little, O Jew, I have yet another hold upon you. By the laws of Venice, your health goes to the state, since you conspired against the life of one of its citizens. Your life at the mercy of the Duke. Therefore, down on your knees and ask him to pardon you." The Duke then said to Shylock, "That you may see the difference of our Christian spirit, I pardon your life before you ask it. Half of your wealth belongs to Antonio, the other half comes to the state." Now Shylock had an only daughter named Jessica. She had married a Christian named Lorenzo against the wishes of her father. This Lorenzo was Antonio's friend. Shylock was so offended at his daughter's marriage to Lorenzo that he had disinherited her. Now, when Antonio was awarded by the Duke half of the Shylock's property, he showed great generosity. He said that he would give up his share of Shylock's wealth if Shylock would sign a deed that he would give it over at his death to his daughter and her husband. The Jew agreed to this. He was so disappointed in his revenge that he said, "I am ill, let me go home. Send the deed after me, and I will sign over half my riches to my daughter." "Go away then," said the Duke, "and sign it. And if you repent your cruelty and turn Christian, the state will forgive you the fine of the other half of your riches." The Duke now released Antonio and dismissed the court. He then highly praised the wisdom and intelligence of young lawyer, and invited him home to dinner. But Portia wanted to return to Belmont before her husband, so she said, "I humbly thank you, honor, but I have to leave immediately." The Duke said he was very sorry he couldn't enjoy the company of such a learned person. Then he returned to Antonio and said, "Reward this gentleman, for in my mind you are much indebted to him." The Duke and his senators left the court. Then Bassanio said to Portia, "Most worthy gentleman, I and my friend Antonio have by your wisdom escaped a great doom. I request you to accept the 3,000 ducats that were due to the Jew. Besides, we shall stand indebted to you forever in love and service," said Antonio. Though Antonio and Bassanio insisted again and again, Portia didn't accept the money, but when Bassanio still pressed her to accept some reward, she asked Antonio for his gloves and Bassanio for his ring. Actually, it was the ring which the clever lady wanted to get from him. She had thought of making a merry jest with her Bassanio when he would come back to her house at Belmont. That was why she asked him for his ring. And now, when she saw the ring, she said, "For your love, I will take this ring from you." This put Bassanio in a fix. He was very unhappy that the lawyer should ask him for the very thing he couldn't part with. In great confusion, he replied that he couldn't give him the ring because it was his wife's gift and he had vowed never to part with it. He offered that he would give him the most valuable thing in Venice in place of the ring. At this, Portia pretended to be angry and left the court, saying, "You teach me, sir? That is a common excuse that men often make when they are unwilling to make a gift." "Dear Bassanio," said Antonio, "let him have the ring. Please bear the risk of your wife's displeasure for the sake of my love and the great service he has done for me." Bassanio felt ashamed as he was appearing to be so ungrateful. So he yielded and sent Gratiano after Portia with ring. Now Nerissa too had given a ring to Gratiano. She asked him for this ring, and Gratiano gave it to her. After Gretino had gone back, there was much laughing between the two ladies. "Now, when these husbands get back home, we shall charge them with infidelity. We shall say that they have given the rings as presents to some women," suggested Portia to Nerissa. Portia and Nerissa hurried home to Belmont. There they took off their disguises, put on their proper clothes, and waited for the return of their husbands. It was not long before they arrived, bringing Antonio with them. Bassanio introduced his dear friend to Portia. The words of welcome and congratulations were hardly over when they saw Nerissa and her husband quarreling in a corner of the room. Portia asked them laughingly, "What, a quarrel already? What is the matter?" Gretino replied, "Lady, it is about a simple ring that Nerissa gave me. It had words upon it like the poetry on a cutler's knife, 'Love me and leave me not.'" "What does the poetry or the value of the ring signify?" said Nerissa. "You swore to me when I gave it to you that you would keep it till the hour of death, and now you say you gave it to the lawyer's clerk. I know you gave it to a woman." "By this hand," replied Grishno, "I gave it to a youth, a kind of boy, no higher than yourself. He was a clerk to a young lawyer who, by his wife pleading, saved Antonio's life. This talkative boy begged the ring for a fee. I couldn't for my life deny him." Portia said, "You are to blame, Gretino. You parted with your wife's first gift. I gave my lord Bassanio's ring. I am sure he wouldn't part with it for all the world." Gretino, in excuse for his fault, now said, "My lord Bassanio gave his ring away to the lawyer, and then the boy, his clerk, begged my ring. He had taken great pains in writing notes for the lawyer." When Portia heard this, she seemed very angry. She reproached Bassanio for giving away her ring. She said that she was sure that the ring had gone to some woman. Bassanio was very unhappy that he had so offended his dear lady. He said with a great earnestness, "No, by my honor, no woman had it. None but the lawyer had it. He refused to accept 3,000 ducats from me and begged the ring. When I denied he went away displeased. What could I do, sweet Portia? I was feeling so ashamed for my seeming ingratitude that I was forced to send the ring after him. Pardon me, good lady. Had you been there, you would have surely begged the ring of me and given it to the worthy lawyer." Ah, said Antonio, I am the unhappy cause of these quarrels. Bassanio gave the ring to the lawyer, Balthazar, at my request. But for this lawyer's voice pleading, I should have been dead by now. I dare say by my soul that your lady will never again break his faith for you. I beg you to forgive him this time. Then you shall be his surety, said Portia. Give him this ring and bid him keep it better than the other. When Bassanio looked at this ring, he was greatly surprised. He found that it was the same ring he had been given to the lawyer. The Portia told the whole story of how she was the young lawyer and Nerissa her clerk. Bassanio was filled with unspeakable wonder and delight when he found that it was by the noble courage and wisdom of his wife that Antonio's life was saved. There was a great joy in the Belmont that evening. This joy became manifold when a messenger came with letters for Antonio. These letters contained some very good news. The ships which were believed to have been lost had all reached the harbor safely. So the tragic beginning of this rich merchant stories turned into unexpected good fortune in the end. There was much laughter at the comic turn of events created by the rings. The absurdity that the husband had not been able to know their own wives. Thus the story ends with laughing and joking with Gretiniano merely swearing that while I live, I'll fear no other thing so sore as keeping safe Nerissa's ring. So here the story ends. Thanks a lot.